Hi everyone, Blaine here, and today I'm going to be showing you how to do a little more advanced flight planning so that you can have a more immersive experience. This is the procedure that I use, and it is more advanced than simply just plugging information into your FMC. This requires a little more thinking, a little more planning, and a little more use of um, supplemental programs or websites. But again, the whole goal of this is to be more immersive. So what we're going to do is I'm going to put in all the information and show you what I use to do this advanced flight planning for Phoenix to Los Angeles, and then I'll do the pre-flight. I'm not going to actually do the flight, but I will cover, as I said, the advanced planning and the pre-flight. So let's get started. So the first thing you want to do is go to myflightroute.com, and it'll on the main web page it will list a bunch of different selections you want to select ATIS player. ATIS player. And this provides information on weather and operations at major airports throughout the United States. And so this is the information you're going to need in terms of planning your flight. So beginning with Phoenix, we're going to listen in and hear what the weather and operations says. So let's go to Phoenix. So we hit play.
Altitude. Advise on initial contact you have whiskey. Phoenix Sky Harbor International Information Whiskey. 0051 Zulu. Wind, 330 at 3. Visibility 10. Few clouds at 25,000. Temperature 19er. Dew point -12. Altimeter 29er88. Visual approach runway 7 right, 8, in use. Departing runway 7 left. 8. Read back all runway assignments, and hold short instructions. All VFR departures, contact clearance delivery with your aircraft type, initial heading and requested cruise altitude. Advise on initial contact you have whiskey. Phoenix Sky Harbor International Information Whiskey.
So that gave us important information for Phoenix. It gave us which runways are currently used for departure, which is 7 left and 8. It gave us our altimeter, which is 2988, and it told us what the wind is. It's coming from a vector of 3, or I should say, I guess, direction 330 at 3. So the wind is very light. So we're going to do the same thing now for LAX. We're going to listen in for the arrival runway, the altimeter, and the wind. So we're going to find KLAX.
Aircraft type, initial heading and requested cruise altitude. Operate transponder with mode C on all taxiways and runways. Advise on initial contact you have Yankee. Los Angeles International Airport Information Yankee. 0053 Zulu. Wind, 260 at 12. Visibility 10. Few clouds at 2,700. Few clouds at 5,000. 15,000 scattered. Temperature 13. Dew point 7. Altimeter 29er90. Simultaneous instrument approaches are in progress to runway 24 right 25 left, or a vector for a visual approach will be provided. Simultaneous visual approaches to all runways are in progress, and simultaneous approaches are in progress, between Los Angeles and Hawthorne airports. Departing runway 24 left. 25 right. Read back all runway assignments, and hold short instructions. All VFR departures, contact clearance delivery with your aircraft type, initial heading and requested cruise altitude. Operate transponder with mode C on all taxiways and runways. Advise on initial contact you have Yankee. Los Angeles International Airport Information Yankee.
So again, that gave us important information. It told us that the arrival runways for instrument is 24 right and 25 left. Our altimeter is 2990, and our wind is 260 at 12. So the wind is a little bit stronger. So we're going to use this information now when we plug it into SimBrief, and it's going to generate a flight plan for us that we can follow. So you now want to go to simbrief.com, and you have to register an account. It's free though. And then you're going to go to Dispatch and go to Dispatch System, and you're going to go Create New Flight. Now you're going to input this information in order for SimBrief to generate a flight plan. So first I'm going to set the units to pounds. We're going to put in our airline, which is, for me, it's WestJet, flight number 175. We are departing KPHX, We are flying to Los Angeles, which is KLAX. Our aircraft type is Zibo 737-800, so we're going to select that, 737-800. Our departure runway will be 7 left or 8. Now I want to just take a look at those real quick. So this is on Navigraph, KPHX. This is Navigraph charts, by the way. If you don't have it, I strongly suggest that you get it, simply because it's $10 a month and it provides a whole bunch of information. Okay, so departure runways are 7 left, which is this one, or 8. We'll select runway 8. Let's just say that. So now we go back to SimBrief and we enter in our departure runway, which will be 8. Our arrival runway is going to be 25 left. Taxi in, taxi out, don't worry about that. Extra fuel, I'm going to put in 0.5. This is fine. And then it's going to recommend a route to us, and this is one of the most popular routes. So we're going to hit Analyze Route, and it says that it's good. If we scroll down here, it will give us an actual pictorial map of what the actual flight plan looks like. Now, a couple of things with this. First of all, as you can see here, we're actually going up. So we're going north, west, and then we're going pretty much straight in. So because of that, how far out we are and the direction that we're going, which is due west, we're going to absolutely use one of the approach stars or the approaches, I should say, for that runway. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to write down this information here so we know what our SIDs and stars are going to be and things. So this first one right here is our SID, which is our standard instrument departure. So we're going to write that down. So it's IZZY-06. Our transition is going to be messy. Our star is going to be Hollywood 1. And our star transition is going to be Eastwood. So now that's going to basically get us from Phoenix to Los Angeles, but we also want to look at what the approach is going to be. So we're going to go back to Navigraph and we're going to type in Los Angeles. And we're going to look at the approach for that runway. So our runway that we're going to use is 25 left. And so when I select that, I can see here that the approach is here. I can choose any one of these. Now, again, remember, if you think about the map, we're going up and then down. So because of that, we're going to use Circus as our approach. And I've used that one before, and it's very reliable and very good. So we're going to use that for the approach. So our flight plan in SimBrief is pretty much complete. We don't need to really add anything else. Another thing to really keep in mind is make sure your AIRAC cycle is current if you are using SimBrief, because it relies on current information. Okay, so we're good. So we're going to hit Generate Flight Plan. And this is going to punch out some information for us, such as our fuel, our time in the air, things like that, etc. Okay, so it currently says that our cruise altitude is going to be flight level 360. Our block fuel is going to be 13,250 pounds. And our extra fuel is going to be 500 pounds. And it also says that our time in the air is going to be 1 hour and 9 minutes. Also, you can see that this route here is the route that we had previously selected. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy this. And now we're going to go to skyvector.com and we're going to put that route in just to make sure that everything looks correct. So we're going to go to Flight Plan. We're going to type in KPHX and then KLAX. And it's pretty much a straight line because, again, the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. We're going to hit Paste, and then we're going to hit Enter. And you can see here that it follows the route that the other map showed us, and it's a good route. So when we scroll in here, and everything looks fine. Okay, so that's great. So we've done the flight planning in terms of, what our route is going to be, what's our fuel going to be, and things like that. Now what we'll do is we'll actually get into the aircraft and start pre-flight. Hi everyone, Blaine here, and we just finished our pre-flight planning, so that's all good. We're now actually in the sim, and let's get going. So we're at Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport, and we're in Zibo 737-800, and let's get started. So we're going to jump into the aircraft. We're set to cold and dark, and let's begin. So we're going to go to the overhead panel, and we're going to first put the battery to on, close the guard. We're going to set standby power to auto and close the guard. We're then going to ensure that the pumps, the two far left and far right are on and the middle are off. That is correct. We're going to set the position light to steady. And we're going to close the emergency light guard. We're now going to make sure that the packs are turned off. And then we are going to align the IRS. So we go all the way to the top here. And we switch these two knobs to nav. And then we select heading/STS, and this will begin the alignment of IRS. I have it set to short, so it's only going to take a minute, but you can choose in the FMC options to either have it to long, which is 6 minutes, or real, which is 12. It depends on you. So while that's aligning, we're going to turn ground power to on. And we can see here that obviously the IRS is not capturing in that, which is fine because we have to align it and then we'll input it. So let's simply wait for the IRS to align, which will only take a moment. And we can see that the IRS has aligned, so that's great. So we're going to continue with our setting things up now. So the first thing we're going to do is increase the lighting in the cabin. So we're going to go to each of these knobs and we're going to turn the lighting up. And we're also going to do this on the radio panel as well. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do now is load fuel. Now, if you remember, we got our fuel from the from SimBrief, and so we're going to load that. Now, there's two ways you can do this. You can use an add-on called Ground Services, which is what I use, and that will load the fuel to give you that more immersive experience, or you can just enter the fuel yourself in the configuration. So how you would do that is you would go to Flight and edit or Flight Configuration. You would choose your aircraft. You'd go to Weight, Fuel, and Balance. So currently, I have the fuel, like this is just the stock one that it came up with, but I'm going to turn it to 0, and then I'm going to input the information that SimBrief gave to me. So my total fuel weight is going to be 13,250, and I'm going to hit Tab, and these two numbers here, the left, tank number 1 and 3 should be even, and they're not. So sometimes you have to enter it twice because it can be finicky. If I hit Tab now, there we go. And then because we have extra fuel, I'm going to add that into the center tank. So it's an extra 500 pounds, so it's going to be 8,794. Okay. Now, if you're not going to use Ground Services as an add-on, you don't have to do anything further. You can just hit Done and you're complete. If you are going to use it though, then you're going to want to just wipe these numbers out. The only reason I inputted them was to see what the balance would be for each of the fuel tanks. So I'm going to wipe it out and hit Done, and then I'm going to hit Discard, or hit Apply Changes I should say. And then what I'm going to do is call up Ground Services. So I'm going to go to my plugins here and go Request Fuel. And then I'm going to put the information in that I just got from each of those tanks. So tank 1 is going to be 2477.8. Tank 2 is going to be 8794.5. And tank 3 is going to be 2477.8. And then I'm going to start fueling, and I'm going to hit Start Pump.
ZB738 starting refuel.
And now it's going to actually fuel based on those numbers. So the next thing we're going to do is configure the FMC. So right here it says enter IRS position, meaning that the computer doesn't know where it is. So we were just aligning the IRS, and we're going to make sure that that's correct now. So we're going to hit clear. We're then going to go to FMC, position initial, and you can see here that it says set IRS position. So you would go to next page, and you would make sure that these two GPS coordinates match. So 33, 26.2, west 112, 001, and they do. So you can line select either one, and then you would hit previous, and you would line select the set IRS position. And the computer has taken that. Now, if we scroll up, we can see that the PFD and the nav page have kind of populated with information. So that's good. We're now going to enter our FMC information. And so our reference airport is Phoenix, so KPHX. And then we're going to go to route. We're going to enter our departure runway, which will be 08. Our flight number, which will be 175. And our destination, which will be Los Angeles, so KLAX. We're going to go to performance initial. We're going to enter our cost index for WestJet, which is 40. Our reserves, which will be 500. And our zero fuel weight, we're just going to select. And it's going to tell us that 38,900 is our best, or our most efficient cruise altitude, 38,800. But because SimBrief told us to use 36,000, that's what we're going to do. So we're going to go 360 and enter that in, and then we're going to hit 360. So that's good. We're now going to go to N1 limit, and we're going to enter our outside temperature, which is going to be 18 degrees. It's the number found just above the N1 panel. And we're going to go /18 and enter, and we're going to select our D rates, which will be D rate 2 and climb 1. We're going to go to takeoff, and we're going to enter our flap value, which will be 5 for takeoff configuration. And then we're going to go to this number right here and hit trim, and it's going to give us our trim amount. So we're going to zoom out to the trim wheel, and it's 4.76, so we don't need to go very far because these are integers of 1, so that's probably more than enough. We're then going to line select our V-speeds, and we're going to want to write these down because we're going to input these actually into the computer, so these are going to be important. So V1 is 130, VR is 131, and then V2 is 139. Okay, so that's now done. So now we're going to go to departure and arrival, and we're departing Phoenix. So we're going to select our SID that we had earlier, which is IZZY6, and our transition is going to be messy. We're going to go to route, and then we're going to go to activate, and we're going to hit execute. And that's good, and then we're going to go to departure and arrival, and KLAX, we're going to select Hollywood 1 for our star, Eastwood for our transition, and then our runway. So we're going to select 25 left.
ZB738 refueling complete.
Okay. I don't know why it added extra fuel. It should be, this number should be that, and it's not. So that, I don't know why it did that, but you know, it's better to have more fuel than not enough. So we're just going to roll with it for this instance. So I'll hit close there, and we're going to select our runway, which is 25 left, and we're going to hit our transition, which will be now we selected Circus, but Zibo, I'm just thinking about the picture of our approach. Zibo is probably a better option. I mean, they're both pretty much the same. One is just a little bit north, one is just a little bit south, but we'll use Zibo instead. And then we're going to hit execute. So now we're going to go to the EFIS panel, and we're going to go plan, and we're going to leave that at 10. And now what you want to do is you want to hit legs, and you want to zoom in so you have the nav screen and the FMC kind of in view so that we can go through and audit our flight plan. So we're going to hit step, and we can see here that there is a break between our flight plan. So we hit previous page, and we go step, There's one between keys, is that it? So I go previous page. Maybe it just shows that because it shows there's no discontinuity between. Keys, and then ISO, and then we don't have one after messy. We can see it says root discontinuity. So how we would fix that is we would click Eastwood, and then we would line select the discontinuity and hit execute. Now you can see there's a line right here, right? So if I hit that, then it shows the connecting one. Oh, you know what? I know what it is. Normally, if I do it, try to close, but if I hit it to 60 here, and then I go back and I zoom in, that's why it didn't show that line initially. You can see between the two here we have a connecting line. So I would hit execute, and then we're good. If I go back to the front actually, and I hit step, yeah, it connects fine. And then we use Zibo, and then Zibo goes into our approach, and the flight plan is good. So that's great. Okay, so we're going to go back to here, and we're going to put this back to map. Now, I was just thinking about the fuel there, guys. It should have loaded the correct amount. Usually it does, but you can always fix that. If you wanted it to be exactly the same amount, you go back to configuration, and you go back to weight and fuel balance, and then you just take this one out here. So I'm just going to go 2477.8 and hit tab, and then hit done and apply changes. And then my fuel is even, so that's something you can do. So we've completed our stuff that we have to do for the FMC. So now what we're going to do is go back to the overhead panel, and we're going to turn some more things on. So we're going to turn on yaw dampers. Now that our fuel is loaded, we can turn on the fuel pumps. And now we're going to start the APU. So we're going to hit on, and then we have to hold this down until the exhaust gas temperature gauge moves. And the APU is started. So what we're going to do is wait for this needle to level off around 4 on the exhaust gas temperature gauge, and then we can proceed with the rest of our checklist. So that'll just take a moment. Okay, so the exhaust gas temperature gauge is leveled off about 4, so that's good. So now we're going to turn the bus transfers for the APU gen on, and you can see right here it says APU bus is available. So we're going to turn on the 2 center bus transfers, which are the APU ones. So we're going to hit on and on, and we heard a ding sound, so that's great. We now are under APU power, so we don't need ground power, so we're going to hit off. Now we're going to turn the engine bleeds on, so on, and then we're going to turn the APU bleed on. Now we're going to enter our flight altitudes for our pressurization. So our altitude right here for flight alt will be our cruise alt basically, which was the 36,000. Now if you don't know where to get that, if you go to the FMC and you go to menu, FMC, position initial, route, performance initial, this number right here is the number you're going to put in, so 36,000. Additionally, while we're at the FMC, your landing altitude you're going to get from the legs page. So you're going to go along here until you reach your arrival runway, and you're going to use this value right here, so 150. So the overhead panel, we're going to turn this to 36,000. And then landing alt to 150. So those are set. Now what we're going to do is configure the MCP or mode control panel right here. So we're going to turn the flight directors on. We're going to turn auto throttle on. We're going to ARM, VNAV, LNAV. We're going to set auto brakes to RTO. And now we're going to enter our V speeds. So initially, we wrote down the V1 and the VR speeds. So those are the ones we want to use. So if you zoom in here, you can see it says speed references V1. So if we turn it to V1, we now have a speed that's appeared here on the PFD. And now we're going to use the little knob and we're going to increase that. So your V1 speed was the one that we initially wrote down. And that one is going to be, for us, it's 130. Okay, now we're going to switch to VR, which is our next speed, which will be 131. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to switch this to set. And those are set, so that's all good now. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to turn the hydraulic pumps on the overhead panel. Okay, so those are on. We're going to set our anti-collision light to on. And now we're going to call for a pushback, and then we're going to start the engines. Now, with the engines, you're going to want to start by having one of the selectors here. Usually you want to start with the right, and then you're going to hit ground as pushback happens. So, let's call it for a pushback. Now, before we do that, actually, we should look outside and see where we're going. So we are departing on runway 08, which is over here. So, we want to push back to the right. So we're going to go Shift G. If you have better pushback, you can use that as well. For simplicity's sake, I just use the this one here. Something you want to do just to make sure your plane doesn't, you know, tilt up by the toe is you want to hit the park brake and then release just so it knows that you had the brake enabled. So we're going to hit right.
Okay, push cart coming.
Push cart is coming. Okay, so now we're going to go to the overhead panel and we're going to select the right igniter. And then we are going to start the engine as soon as we start to move.
Here we go.
Okay, so we're pushing back. So now we're going to start the engine. We're going to switch this to ground. And then if we look at the N2 value here, we can see that it's starting to climb. When this gets to 20, between 20 and 30, we're going to then turn this switch right here for number 2 to idle so that it doesn't go any further. Okay, so that's good. We're now going to switch this up. We're going to go back here. We're going to wait for this to click off, and then we're going to do the same thing for engine 1. Okay, and now we're going to do engine 1 to ground, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to wait for this to get to around 20, and then we're going to turn the lever up again. Pushback is completed, so as soon as this other engine idles, or starts, I guess I should say, we'll then turn on some other things. Okay, so we're at 20, so that's fine. Turn this on. That's going to click off. While that's waiting, we're going to turn window heat and pitot heat on. Okay, so that's clicked off. That's fantastic. The next thing we're going to do is set the igniters to center. We're then going to turn the packs to auto. And then we're going to switch the engine to continuous. Now we're going to switch the generator bus controls to on, so these will be the 2 outer ones left and right. Okay, so now what happens is we are on engine power, so we no longer need the APU. So we're going to turn the APU off. And we're going to wait for the exhaust gas temperature gauge to hit 0 before we turn the APU bleed off. And that only takes a moment. Okay, so now that that is to 0, we can turn the APU bleed to off. Now we're going to go to front here. We're going to finalize our MCP. We're going to turn this to our V2 speed, which was 139. We're going to set our altitude to cruise, which was 36,000. So that is good. We're now going to configure our flaps to 5, which is our takeoff. We're going to make sure that we have any messages and see if they're needed to be cleared. So it says FMC reset, so that's fine. We're now going to turn our taxi lights on because we're ready to go. And we're going to turn our position light here from steady to strobe and steady. And then we're ready to get out of here. So let's taxi to our departure runway. We'll go ahead and enter the runway now. Okay, so because we're entering the runway, we want to turn off our taxi lights and put on our landing lights. Nothing is coming. Nothing is coming. Okay, so now we're ready to depart. So the only thing you have to do here is to set N1, which is this value here, to 40%. And then hit Toga, which is this button here, and you're ready to go. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Be sure to hit subscribe to be notified when new videos are posted. Thanks for watching.